series called Great White Sharks on Their Best Behavior. And as the name implies, this series is all about complex great white shark behavior, which is my pet subject. I consider myself a white shark behaviorist. I'm a white shark specialist, but my particular interest is white shark behavior. I've done a lot of research on great white sharks when it comes to natural biology. I've written papers on it. I wrote the first ever paper on population dynamics of great white sharks along the southern African coastline, and that's biology. But this is their behavior. And my real interest, although I've done biology on the great white shark, and I've had a great interest in it, of course, my real passion has been white shark behavior, their complex behavior, because I've been involved with great white sharks since the age of 12 years old. And I was involved at that time, when I was growing up as a teenager, in hunting them with my father. And I discussed that in the series, The Submarine. So when you're hunting great white sharks, as a kid, okay, first of all, so it was just excitement. And when you're just excited to see these animals and be, hunting them, and it's going to war with them for no reason whatsoever other than just the excitement of it. And I'm not saying it's the right thing to do or was the right thing to do, but that is how I got involved in great white sharks. I always had a passion for them, always had this interest in them. But when you're out there hunting them, you're always involved with just one animal. There's one animal on the line or one animal on the hook. But later, once I got involved with great white shark research, then you go out to sea and you put baits out in the water, you put chum in the water, or you just go observe at different areas, like an island, like Behaviour Island in Gansbaai. Then you start seeing the sharks coming together, and you see groups of great white sharks. And I've had 10, 12, 15 great white sharks around my boat, the research boat, at one time, on many occasions. I have encountered 33 great white sharks in one morning at a place called North Reef near Behaviour Island in Gansbaai, which is a very famous white shark site. And when you have these animals grouping together, then you start noticing a lot of complex interactions between them. And then from then it spreads out. But my real interest in their behavior began on our very first research trip, where we went out into False Bay and we encountered 5 great white sharks. There were 3 that were around about 2.5 meters long, 2.8 meters long. There was one that was around about 3 meters long, and there was one that was about 3.8 meters long, and we named this one Notchfin. And I'll discuss the interaction in the series. But there was an interaction between these animals and that I'd never seen before, because, as I say, when you're hunting them, you're always encountering one animal at a time, because you hooked that animal and you focused on that particular animal. But now we were just out there observing and tagging these sharks. And for the first time in my life, I saw them reacting with each other, interacting with each other. I saw behavior that I never knew existed, because, to tell the truth, up to that point, my perception was very much like most people perceive great white sharks today and other shark species. It's just dumb eating machines. I never saw them as dumb eating machines. I just saw them as eating machines. I just saw them as very large predators, sort of cold-blooded killers, assassins kind of thing. But this particular day in False Bay, excuse me, changed my entire perception. And from that day onwards, and that was late 1990. That was in our summer of 1990. And it just got me to start looking at the great white shark in a different manner, because I saw things take place on that day. And I started thinking about it. After the trip, after we got back on shore, the next days, I started really considering it. I was thinking about every single thing I saw on that particular occasion. And the penny dropped, because I wanted to understand their behavior. And the penny dropped. And suddenly I realized that we had been looking at great white sharks in the wrong way. There was a bit of science taking place around the world. There was a bit of science taking place in the Faroe Islands, some science on great white sharks in California, where they were tagging them. The Natal Sharks Board on our northeast coast to tag in the odd great white shark. They managed to get out of one of the shark beach nets, the nets that protect the beaches. But it was mostly what you can call taxonomy research or biology research, natural biology. But I suddenly clicked that if I wanted to learn, if anybody wanted to learn about great white shark behavior, you had to get into the mind of the shark. You had to start thinking like a great white shark. And that's what I realized, and that's exactly what put me on a course to become a white shark behaviorist. Of course, I did the biology, I was interested in biology, but my main focus became white shark behavior. And from that day onwards, I started observing the animals. Because, like I say, I realized that I had become a great white shark. When those animals were on the boat and I saw them interacting, if I didn't look at them and think to myself, what is that animal thinking? What is it observing? What is it seeing? Why is it reacting in this way or that way? What is the cognitive process taking place? I would never have learned about great white shark behavior. I would never have understood these animals for what they really are. And they are very smart creatures. A lot of you watching the series have been watching BBC or mostly Discovery Channel, History Channel, the National Geographic Channel. And you've been watching these documentaries, and I'm sorry to say, but most of the experts on these documentaries working with great white sharks are literally 10-minute shark experts. There are some experts out there. There are a few that I respect and that really know this stuff, but there are very few, very, very few white shark experts. And these so-called experts that I refer to as 10-minute great white shark experts, they don't understand great white shark behavior. They really don't. Because even the scientists, even the so-called experts, don't look at this animal from the right perspective. But I've learned that they're smart, they have the ability to learn, they have the ability to build on experience, they remember what they learn, and they fall back on what they've learned and the experience they gained through their life cycle. And I'm going to be discussing and giving you very specific examples of how this takes place and how I noticed it, and you will understand. Once I explain these interactions and explain this behavior to you, you will understand that the great white shark is a very smart animal. Most people believe that the white shark is just a barroom brawler. It's some bonehead guy that just walks into a bar and is a bonehead brawler, as I call him. They don't think too much and they start a fight with somebody, that kind of thing. That's an analogy I would draw between the way most people see great white sharks. But the great white shark is not. The great white shark is a calculating assassin. And a calculating assassin is far more dangerous and far more frightening than some Yahoo ballroom brawler, some bonehead ballroom brawler that just goes and gets into fights and mix ups and all the rest of it. The white shark is a highly intelligent, thoughtful assassin. And unfortunately, you don't see this on the documentaries. And it's not really written about very much. Very, very little has been written about the great white shark when it comes to behavior. The documentaries show you flashes of the great white shark, and normally you've got some so-called expert there mouthing off about, oh, the shark did this, or we're doing this experiment to understand what shapes they like, or have they got a preference for shapes, or do they have a preference for a certain color? That's all nonsense. Yes, it tells you a little bit about the shark, but it tells you very little about what goes on inside their minds, how they perceive the world around them, how they interact with this vast, complex environment that they live in. And it's not easy for great white sharks out there. The ocean is not an easy environment. It's a dangerous place to live, even for an animal like the great white shark. So in any case, like I say, I'm a white shark behaviorist. I understand great white sharks, their behavior very well. I don't know everything about their behavior, but I probably know more than most. I know more than most, not probably, so I'm not going to be humble about it. And I think you're going to really enjoy the series. This series on their behavior, great white sharks and their best behavior, you're going to find very fascinating, and you're going to learn things that you never knew before because you've never seen on television and you've never read about it. So hang in there and welcome to this exciting series.